Well, hi guys, loads to catch you up on with the fishing. I've been on loads of matches since we last blogged, only a couple of weeks away, but first of all, I want to catch you up with the Lindome League. Really been enjoying this Lindome League. It's not brilliant every week. It's peggy. Now you're probably thinking, well, how come you enjoy that then? Well, I'll tell you why, because sometimes I get a little bit caught up in wanting the fairest match, wanting a straight line, all the rest of it, but a friend of mine said something very interesting this weekend. He said, look, if it was a super fair match, there'd only be half a dozen anglers here, and you wouldn't get the mystery that you get in fishing and all the rest of it. And I thought, he's absolutely right. Sometimes you don't want, like, everything to be as fair as it can be. And that also means making the right decisions in how you try to get the best results. So, for example, do you target small fish? Do you target big fish? What decisions do you make? If there's going to be a few big fish, do you try and be the best of the rest? So that will, you know, if you're not where the big fish are. So sometimes with it being a little bit uneven, that can make it exciting. Generally speaking, I like a relatively even match, but it certainly has mixed things up. Nick Speed, a good friend of mine, actually said to me that it's probably one of the peggiest leagues he's ever fished. So, and I think he's actually right, to be honest. You know, it's just one of those where you don't always get the results and you don't always get things your own way. So, all of that said, the first match I'm going to catch you up on was at the Lindome League, and I actually managed to win the match. Must be peggy. Okay, I had £42 and I had a really nice day's fishing. I fished on bonsai, I was pegged 29, couple of lines for skimmers, kept them coming all day, really enjoyed it. And then I fished a longer line for F1s. And I felt you needed several F1s to do any good. Jim all on my right had 12 F1s throughout the match. There was Joe Golding down the back straight had 14 F1s. And I finished the match with 6 F1s. So I sort of resorted myself to being third in my section, to be honest. I felt that they were going to be too big to beat. And I was really surprised when I weighed in. I probably had 26, 28 pound of skimmers and 10. I had 4 or 5 little tench. Skimmers, roach. I had a lovely, lovely net of fish. Weighed a little bit more than I thought, and my 6 F1s were really big. 6 F1s for probably £15, and that took my weight to £42 and put me as match winner, which was absolutely great. I was delighted. More importantly, I got a section win for the league, so I was on 2 section wins and a third, and I had to miss a round. Did have a replacement, but less said about that the better. Hey, Alex. So on to the next round. So I needed a good result because I've got one result that didn't that I missed. So I've got 2 wins and a third. Surely I just need now a decent result. Well, I drew in a bay on Willows, pegged 52. Knew it was going to be hard. Water was really clear, but I fancied it for a few fish. Some great company. I had Mick Viles and Alan Scott on 2 points, all looking at me in this bay, and we were all sort of facing each other. And when I tell you, Mick had 2 F1s, Alan didn't have an F1, and I had 2 F1s. That is how bad the fishing was this weekend. Super cold. You know, don't need me to tell you how good Alan is. So, and also how well he does at Lindome. And I had 2 F1s, just totally out of the blue, nothing. And they weighed 5.12 with about, I probably had £2 of bits, to be fair. And that put me 5th in my section, so an absolute disaster, if I'm being honest. Was desperate for a top 3. A top 3 would have meant that I could have still won the league. Now, I can't win the league. If I win my section next week, I still don't think I can win the league unless the leaders were to come last in there, so I think that's very, very unlikely. But that's just if you win. Now I'm focusing on getting in the frame. We're paying 9. I reckon a top 3, well, top 3 will definitely get me in the frame. I'm sure of that. So I'm looking forward to that next week. It's milder this week. I think it'll fish 10 times better this weekend. So I'm really, really, really looking forward to that. So that's going to be good. In the meantime, in between those 2 matches at Lindome, I went to the Woodlands Lake Silverfish Festival up at Thirsk. I really like Woodlands as a complex. It's quite shallow, but there's thousands of fish across it, and I do like going and fishing there. It's very clean, everything's very nice, you know, don't get covered in mud. It's a good breakfast. You know, I just like being there. And there was 21 anglers there. Some great guys from the northwest come across. Somebody Bennett, you know, and Billing and those sort of people. You know who I mean. Them people from the northwest. And they were coming across, so they were going to be stiff competition. Locals very good, and last year's winner Neil Stead, who's a very good angler also, were also going to be there. So there was only about 20 of us, or 21 I think, and we were split into 3 lots of 7. I really fancied it, really wanted a good result, and in my opinion the correct decision was how they ran the festival. They ran it on weight. It's a very, it can be peggy because everything's cold, just like we've been saying earlier, and I think that you could have easily had like a last in your section through no fault of your own, which means you couldn't have won the festival unless it was on weight. So I felt that was a really good decision from Craig, who organised it. First day, well, I went on a practice match day before, won my lake with 11 pounder roach, not loads of fish, took a couple of hours to get a bite, 60 odd fish, had to really work for them, really enjoyed my day's fishing. Put me a bit of a disadvantage. I know that's going to sound bizarre, but you'd probably think fishing the day before puts you at an advantage, but it didn't. It put me at a disadvantage because I actually felt like I caught these roach. I thought, I'll catch a few of these the next day. When I drew my peg, I wasn't to know this until the end, but I was on peg 3 on Curlew, and it was really a lake called Curlew, and it was really, it was cold, really cold. And there was 3 defined stamps of fish. My end of the lake, not a lot of fish at all, but a really good stamp. Middle of the lake, quite a few fish, nice sort of like 6 to 10 ounce size fish. And then at the bottom end of the lake, there was loads of fish, but they were like 1 ounce to 3 ounce. Really strange how that's worked out. But I was fishing away, desperately trying to catch fish. And it just wasn't happening. The next 2 guys on my bank were getting a fisher bung on the pole. I hadn't had a bite on the pole. Opposite hadn't had a bite on the pole. And I just thought, maybe I've done this wrong, maybe I haven't done this quite right. But I had a waggler rod set up, and I nicked 18 fish on a waggler. They went 13 pound. I caught 1 on the pole late on. To be honest, I spent like an hour and a half on the pole, on and off throughout the day. So I wasted an hour and a half. I could have just fished waggler all match, but it's impossible to know because you're not expecting that. The day before, this is what I'm saying, I caught all these roach on the pole. Surely that was the way to fish. So I was a little bit disappointed, to be honest, that had happened, because I felt that the fish was such a good stamp. If I'd have just gone there and fished a waggler, which would have been hard to do straight off, if I would have done, another 5 fish could have been another 3 pounds. So I was really disappointed, really, that I felt that I'd missed out on a couple of pounds. Partridge had fished really well. Andy Bennett and Neil Stead had been on 2 of the better pegs and fished brilliant matches. They'd had 19 and 16 pound. So I was thinking, oh, I'm already behind them. There would have been a 16 pound in the middle of my lake and a 17 pound on Kestrel. So I was thinking, okay, I need a good second day. Drew peg 33 on Partridge. If I tell you it blanked on the first day, it blanked on the last day. I just about managed to sneak 4 fish off it. I set 2 brollies up, right, because it was that windy and cold, and a feeder rod, and I had 3 skimmers. I had 3 skimmers for 4 pound. Absolutely terrible. It was so cold. Honestly, all my rings on my rod had frozen, so nothing was going to feed. The other end of the lake, there was an 11 pound where the wind was a bit sheltered, and I really thought, that's it, because on the lake behind me, there'd been a 32 pound from Neil Stead, a 30 pound from Andy Bennett, there'd been 2 20 pounds, an 18 pound. The lake had fished its brains out. So I thought, oh, it's all over. I can't even get in the frame now, because even though I was going to that lake the next day, so many fish being caught, you know it's not going to be as good the following day. So I was a bit like, God, I need to draw a good peg, catch a half reasonable weight. Maybe I'll sneak in one of the latter frame places, 5th or 6th. Because I'd drawn such a bad peg the day before, I think I was kindly donated by the draw gods a good peg the following day. And I drew peg 10 on Kestrel. Now, that's a really good peg, I'm not going to lie to you, it's a very good peg. I really fancied it for a weight. We started fishing though, and it wasn't the same. an hour into the match, nobody caught anything. I'd had about 5 or 6 fish on my peg, and there'd been 1 or 2 fish, and 4 or 5 people with nothing. And it was just like, well, it's not going to be as good. Got steadily better throughout the day. Nicked odd fish, kept putting a fish in the net. I kept putting fish in the net all day, and they were nice, that medium stamper skimmers. 6 ounce, 8 ounce, 10 ounce fish. Really starting to enjoy the fishing. Mega light elastics were important. Loose feeding on one line, ground bait on the other. Gave myself a bit of both. Found that my ground bait line worked well to start with, then my loose feed line came on well late on. So I had a lovely little blend of 2 lines going. And I finished the day with 32 pounder skimmers. I was absolutely over the moon. It won the match, which was fantastic. I think there was a 16 pound a second, so I really was pleased there. You know, made up for the day before. And then I saw Andy Bennett come walking onto the lake. I think Andy's a great guy. And I said, how have you gone on? And he gave me that little look because I hadn't weighed in yet. And he said, I had 2 fish from curlew 3. I said, you're joking? He said, no, it's been terrible. And he's had him in the last 20 minutes. And I said, oh, right. 2 fish, that's not going to be it. Oh, he said, they'll be like £2.11 they've weighed. So we'd just worked out I needed like £34 to beat him, and I put £32 on the scale. So he finished up beating me in the festival by £2. Neil Stead had £6 on curlew, and he ended up beating me by just short of £5. So I ended up coming 3rd in the festival. That first day, maybe I could have nicked a few fish. Obviously, a better draw the day before. Loads of possibilities there, but I was delighted. 3rd place, good pickup with the money. Because it was well paid out. Really enjoyed my fishing. Really thought it was great. So that was nice. So I was quite buzzing going into Saturday at Lindome, which obviously I've told you didn't go my way. So then that took us on to the Thorn Bait Tech Canal Championship final. Like I say, at Thorn. Absolutely love Thorn, but wow, this year it's thrown some changes. I always say it. Every year I say it at the end of the year. It's been different from last year, and it's been unbelievably different this year. Bream like I've never seen on the canal. There isn't the consistency. You can't get the same consistency in results because there's big fish showing up all over the place. I've had a nice winter, I'm not going to lie. I've won a match, 2nd in 2 or something like that. So really good. Really happy with how the winter's gone. So when I sat down at the weekend, I drew peg 183. The sky was blue, there was heavy frost on the ground, and the canal's frozen. Right up my street. Small fish match, £8. I'm going to frame. That's what my target is. I can do this today. My head completely focused on that. Broke my hole in the ice. Set my stall out. Off we go. Got Ben Roberts for company on my left. Fantastic budworm angler. So I'm thinking this is going to be great. I'm really looking forward to this. Getting my head down. After 20 minutes, I've looked up. 2 pegs down has got a bream. 3 pegs down has got a bream on. 4 pegs down, he's putting a bream in his net via his landing net. And I'm thinking, that is what's going through my head. There's bream everywhere. There's bream everywhere. My £8 has been blown out the window. And I'm just trying really to think to myself, what do I do? I kept putting the small fish in the net, but I thought I need to try and catch some bream. But nobody to my left had caught a bream at this time, so it was a bit like, well, they're all in my section and they've not got a bream, but all these have got a bream, so didn't really know what to do. Then, end peg in my section, John Freeborn started catching bream and skimmers. 2 pegs down and a bream. Ben Roberts then had one a pound, so obviously, all this time, I'm now giving myself a chance of a bream. I've fed some maggots. I'm trying to catch small fish with the chance of a bream. And that has worked nicely. I've had a skimmer about 8 ounce. I've had a bream probably £2. And then right towards the end, with about 15 minutes left, I knew a bream had come into my peg, and I put some line on the bottom, and I was being really patient. I've had an indication that I thought was the bream there, and I've struck, and I've hooked it just outside the mouth on the side of the sort of gill. Mega lucky then. to hook this bream because it hasn't eaten my bait. It's technically foul hooked. Off it's gone all the way around the canal. I played it for ages, played it till like 5 minutes to time. So I've only got light tackle on, but eventually I've got it in, which was a mission in itself, to be honest. Obviously, foul hook fish do count. There's nothing wrong with that. And that's my bit of luck for the weekend. It was probably £3, if I'm being honest, this fish. And it took me, I had about £7 on bloodworm. My bonus fish, I had £12 and ended up coming 6th, which we paid the top 6 on the day. 6th in the grand final with £12. If you had told me I was going to have £12 at the start of the day, I would have bet a substantial amount of money I'd win the match by £2 or £3. I can't believe it. There's been an 18-15, Adam Dowd, buzzing for him that he won. Great young lad. Second was Ian Leach, Welsh International. He's caught 17-14 of bream. There's been a £15 Brian Hawkes of bream. John, on the end of my section, had £14. That included 10 skimmers and a bream. So unbelievable. Nathan Hughes had a lovely net of roach on the other end peg, the other side of John, next to the marina. He's had £13. So it fished its brains out. There's been 2 £10 weights that not won any money, which is unbelievable. And there's just been bream all over. It just goes to show you never know in fishing. Blue sky, ice on the water, surely bream aren't going to feed. Surely that is not going to happen. Bream everywhere. So, back to the drawing board. Always be prepared, always be ready for anything in a match, because that proved to me on Sunday once more that anything can happen. This weekend, last round of the Lindome Winter League, so I will do a blog next week to let you know how that's finished up. I am going to pop to Decoy on Sunday as well, just to start looking at it for the Winter League final, which is in a few weeks' time. Hope you've enjoyed the vlog this week, and I'll catch up with you soon.